later date. This was a common practice early on as a fire protection measure. If the kitchen caught fire, it may be able to save the house. It also kept the heat of the kitchen out of the living area in the summertime. Principal function of the kitchen was the preparation of food and the preservation of it. And preservation of food early on meant getting ice if you could. And here's an early ice box, remembering that ice was harvested in the wintertime on the lakes and rivers just the same as you'd harvest any other crop or chop wood for the fire. A card such as this facsimile was placed in the front window of the house, and whatever number was at the top of the card was the amount that the iceman would bring from his wagon and place in the ice box. We didn't lock our houses, and he would mark his book and send you a bill at the end of the month. And over here we've got the cook stove. It served the purpose of cooking and heating water for laundry and bath, and also heating irons for ironing clothes. Remember that at the time this house was built, we didn't have electricity, we didn't have gas, we didn't have running water, and we didn't have sewer, and probably not a screen on the windows. So the appliances and gadgets that you see here were our way of accommodating life without the things we consider today to be essential to living. We've got examples of butter churn, sauerkraut making equipment, sausage grinder and sausage stuffer. We got a early waffle iron that cooked on one side and then turned over to cook the other side. We ground our coffee as we used it, buying it in bean form. And there's the coffee grinder. And here's another coffee grinder. And an important feature of every early kitchen was a metal box. It prevented the mice and flies from getting at salt, sugar, and bread. We have an assortment of kitchen tools and flatware, and most of these are recognizable and are today mechanized and motorized. But as we move along here, I would call your attention to the ultimate recycling. One of these irons was damaged and the handle broken off of it. They took it to the local blacksmith shop and he fashioned a handle out of a bolt. And you can see here the threads of the original bolt that he used to make the handle from. We made our own soap, mainly by incorporating lye with beef tallow, and it served a purpose, but it got about as hard as a block of wood. And so in order to have it dissolve for laundry or dishes, we used what was known as a soap grater to shave flakes off of the initial bar. We've got a dough maker or bread maker here. We've got an early electric waffle iron and toaster. And we call attention to the fact that milk was delivered in glass bottles placed on the front porch in the early morning hours, and this is a cream top bottle. This is based on the principle that the cream would would rise to the top of the milk and could be lifted off for a coffee or a cereal with a spoon like that. When we began to homogenize milk, this no longer prevailed, and so we went then to this type of bottle. And if we can turn around behind me here. Following up on the story of milk delivery in Middleton, there's a picture of Bill Hoffman, who was the local milkman here in Middleton at one time, and above that picture is an example of the hat that his horse wore. The hat was protecting the horse's head while he stood out in the street waiting for the milkman to walk back and forth between the wagon and porch. Yeah, this grinder here would be used if it was in a home for grinding cornmeal to cornmeal and wheat to wheat flour. It could also be used in a grocery store for grinding coffee if coffee was desired in large amounts. Up here we have an example of an early magazine rack. It took up no floor space, and yet it kept the magazines out of the reach of the youngsters and the dogs and cats that may have been allowed in the house. And we'll finish up a tour of the kitchen area here with calling attention to the early farm telephone. This was in use when an operator made the connection at a central location, and it precedes the use of touch tone or push button rotary dial telephone. And at the time this phone was in use, most customers were on party lines of from 3 to 7 or 8 people on each party line, and they were identified by the different lengths of ring. My home phone when I was a kid growing up was one short and one long. My grandmother's phone across the field from us was 2 shorts and a long. Down here we have an early ice cream freezer, and behind it and along the wall here is the kerosene stove that was used in the summer kitchen because it would cook food, but it didn't heat up the house or the area like the cast iron range did. And on top of the summer stove here we have a compartment that would trap heat so you could bake a cake or a pie on this. And sometimes when youngsters come through here, they want to know if that's an early microwave. This is a compartment for canning fruit and meats in glass jars. Styrofoam cartons offer pretty good protection. This building was built in 2001 to appear as a doctor's carriage house would have in the 1890s. At that time in history, it was normal for a doctor to keep a horse and buggy close by for emergency transportation. In this building we have an industrial implements and tools, farm-operated objects that would have been typically stored in a carriage house, and each one of these has a story behind it. This brace here used ordinary bits, but it was designed for placing electric wiring in old houses when electricity became available, because it would bore a hole tight in the corner of the room without skinning your knuckles up as you swung the axis of the brace there.